Hey, drinking buddies. Thank you for another year of your support. I can't believe we survived the last 2 years, but you made it happen. Every dollar you've given has gone right back into local businesses in rural Japan and here in Long Beach, California. We have more new snacks coming in 2022, but we need your support to get them here. Head to www.thedrinkingbuddyshop.com and use code BuddyShow to get 10% off your first order of our latest snack, inakayaki. Thanks again, and happy holidays.
Describe it in words, and it kind of comes to this point of like, you really, to sell something or know if you like something, you gotta taste it. You gotta put the liquid in your mouth.
This is the Drinking Buddy Show, where we explore food, craft beverage pairings, and the entrepreneurs and tastemakers behind them. I'm Frank, founder of Drinking Buddy Artisan Snacks. On today's show, Paul Dohrenwend and Reina Watanabe from San Diego startup Safu Sake join us to share how they created their exciting new brand. Dr. Paul decided to head back to school for his MBA after years as a physician in San Diego. During his time at Wharton, he started piecing together a sake brand based on his experiences skiing and drinking in Hokkaido. I chatted with him about his love for premium sake, how he connected with food and beverage broker Reina Watanabe, and their combined efforts to launch Safu Sake in the midst of the unrelenting pandemic.
Thanks, Frank, for having us on the show. I am Paul Dohrenwend, and I'm CEO of Safu Sake. We are a new sake brand that's come into the United States. We started in 2020, and we are importing a Junmai Daiginjo right now. The thesis behind the company was to bring in amazing sake to America, an incredible Japanese drinking experience to people, and brand it in a way so they'll be able to remember what they drank. And so we went with Safu Sake. We'll talk more about how we came up with the brand name. We wanted people to recognize the bottle and recognize this wonderful experience they were having. So using a label that's recognizable and something that's easily seen on shelves and something that people can repeat the experience over and over again.
Thanks, Frank, having us here, your amazing podcast. My name is Reina Watanabe, and I'm a global sales rep of Safu Sake. 2019 to 2020, I was working for my family business, which is non-fried potato chips manufacturer in Oita, Kyushu area. Before I go back to Japan in 2020, I was in San Francisco for 6 years, and I was a sales rep for Rizmedak Asian Food, which is Nishimoto Trading Company, leading Japanese food and sake distributor in the United States, and where I had a chance to learn different type of sake that Nishimoto carries from all over Japan. After the distributor experience, I shifted my career to learn more about American CPG market for my family snack business. And I joined the Whole Foods market where I learned about consumer packaging goods design, marketing, and deep consumer insight. I was actually store member, and working on the floor of the retail store really helped me to learn about the elements that consumer really look for, Japanese food and beverages. 2016 to 2018, I was working for Vita Coco, which is leading coconut water company, to learn more about beverage distribution, sales, marketing through demos and trade show in San Francisco area, which I believe the most important experience that I could see the deep inside of beverage industry in the US and how the sales and distribution works with the large retailers. And I think that experience really led me to the passion that I have now with the Safu Sake. So through these experiences, being a rep for a Japanese food distributor, US retailer, and beverage brand player, organically took me to the place where Safu Sake CEO Paul provided. I started the Safu Sake project with Paul back in February 2020. I was in Japan helping my family business in Oita, where Safu Sake was brewed, and Paul called me up looking for a Junmai Daiginjo. I was so happy to help bring us to the final level, bringing a whole story and history from Oita, Japan to San Diego, California, and making this the first batch. It is very new process for every one of us, but we're so happy to be here.
Now, I'd like to get a little bit more into that story. So I understand that before you had the sake, the idea comes from a trip to Hokkaido.
I'm a big skier. I grew up skiing since I was about 2 or 3 up in upstate New York and Lake Placid. And I'd been following the Japanese ski scene for a while. And a buddy had offered to get a bunch of guys, about 5 of us, to go over to Hokkaido on a trip. A year earlier, one of their friends, who was one of the U.S. Olympic skiers, Jared Goldberg, had gone over there with his dad after the Olympics, and they had a great time with a guide skiing. So we were all in to take a trip over there. And on the trip, the guys I was with, we all basically drank tequila and wine and beer, and we hadn't had much experience in sake. So in Japan, we had our first experience with sake at dinner. We really didn't know what we were drinking, but we wanted to repeat that experience. So we went over to the 7-Eleven, grabbed some sake, didn't really know how bad or good that was, and just realized that we were really not drinking very good stuff coming from 7-Eleven. And it does seem to snow a lot in Hokkaido. However, we did have a down day and ended up in this small town of Otaru. And there was a brewery there, Tanaka, I think it was. And we got a tour. We drank a bunch of sake, found out a little bit more about the polish levels and how sake is made. And we had a deep dive in the education. At the end of the day, we all just loved drinking sake, had great experiences with it, thought it was a super fun time. We enjoyed the culture. And then the next day we felt like $1,000,000. None of us were hungover. We were able to go ski and had a great time. And when we got back to the United States, we said, well, why don't we recreate these experiences at our house? We should be drinking less wine, tequila, and beer, and we should be drinking more sake. We had a hard time really reproducing that experience with really finely polished Junmai Daiginjos or Ginjos that we had experienced over there. And so we kidded about starting a sake company, and one of our friends' daughters created a logo and a design, and we walked it down the road a little bit, but really never seriously considered it until I ended up in business school. So I ended up at Wharton for 2 years. It was a little bit of a mid-career play to try and get some business experience. A lot of physicians don't necessarily have a big business background. So while I was at Wharton, we had entrepreneurial classes and venture capital classes, and I had been asked to use a company for a lot of these projects. And one of the things I did was created the sake company, which was at the time sort of a dream. By the end of a few classes, I had the material, the pitch book, the idea, some of the pro forma sheets on how to start a sake company. I just didn't have the kind of personnel, the connections. So my brother lives in Japan. He lives in Tokyo. So I did have a connection over there. At one point, I was fluent in Japanese when I was in college. That was the language that I took. So I had this deep connection to Japan, but not really specific to sake or any of the breweries. And that's where Reina comes in. And I ended up on LinkedIn looking for the CEO of Tipsy. And right below his name, Genki-san, was Reina. And Reina-san, she was a Japanese food broker. I said, you know what? I'd love to talk to her. And she seems like she's in America, and she's got a 415 number. And she's got a website about Reina's Food Brokery. And so at that point, I reached out to Reina and I called her 415 number and didn't quite know what was going to happen from there. It was a cold call.
Yes. So the time I picked up the phone call was 6 a.m. in Japan. And he was introducing himself. Left the voicemail, actually. My name is Paul Dohrenwend, physician at the Kaiser Permanente. And
why are you calling me?
I'd like to give you your test results.
Yes.
Your appointment was.
Yes.
It's like you missed your appointment in San Francisco.
Yeah, I was like, didn't know what to do at the point. I mean, and after that, he was going through studying the Wharton University MBA course and trying to make his company through his courses, and was talking about he's very passionate about making sake through his trip in Japan, and called me back if you have any sort of interest. And he left his number, and I looked up his LinkedIn and make sure he's a real person.
As one does, yeah.
Yes. And I was very curious because I was in Japan and wasn't really know what's really economically going on in the United States. and wasn't really right timing for everybody for doing the international business. But I called up Paul and talked a brief conversation, and he simply said, looking for Junmai Daiginjo specifically, and pointed out the Fukushima region where the Junmai Daiginjo is pretty popular. And I was working in Nishimoto trading back then, so I had more chance to taste the different kinds of sake from northern Japan. Also, the capability of this private brand manufacturing. And talk back to Paul. You know what? Are you interested in to work on some brewery down South Kyushu? Two breweries specifically manufacturing shochu, not sake. And there is less competition when it comes to making a private brand sake, not a shochu. So we ended up in Oita, and our team were sending out a pitch deck to different breweries, and one of the company picked up right away, and we started.
Yeah, you think you know a lot, but you really know very little when you go into these sort of things. And I had conception of sake needed to be brewed where it was cold, and the southern Japan wasn't even on our radar. And Reina is really the biggest champion for Oita Kyushu and the products there. She works with a lot of the Miyazaki brands and the soy sauces and the pickles, cucumber,
yes.
the pickles. And she had raised up this Oita connection, and so thankful she did, because we ended up branding our sake Safu Sake, which is surf in Japanese. And Miyazaki, close by to Oita, has a big surfing culture. And so our main Toji, he's a big surfer too. The whole story connects and gels together. And sometimes you just have to go with your gut and trust people. And I think the story is a lot about trust, because Reina and I never had met. I'm communicating with her over Zoom and phone calls, and she's doing work in Japan on behalf of this idea that I came up with. It just is amazing that when you do trust another person, amazing things can happen. And that's a testament to both how Reina operates and her work ethic, and just joy in putting a project together and then seeing it through, and then making sure the details are all lined up so it actually turns into a real thing. That was one of the coolest parts, because once she sent my pitch deck around to a bunch of people, the surprise was that there was a great brewery who'd been around for 150 years who thought we had a good idea. You know, Japan's population was contracting and the sake drinkers were shrinking in number, but the amount of people drinking it was going down as the younger population was drinking beer and tequila, wine, and getting more westernized. And this art form of brewing sake was deteriorating. People were losing their businesses, and you're having these great artists going out of business and taking that knowledge with them. And so I think at the height, there was 30,000 breweries, and now it's down to 1,500. And in Reina's town, it had shrunk too. So there was a little bit of an understanding of this dynamic going on in Japan, and hoping to bring a new market, America, which sake sales were actually increasing due to curiosity, easier global shipping, which is a thing of the past now.
Right.
So
maybe again someday in the future.
Maybe again someday we'll have easier shipping, but everyone still loves beer, wine, tequila, and stuff. Sake is really underdeveloped. I mean, people, they don't know a brand. Like if you asked a typical American, what's their brand go-to sake that they want when they're home? People even say to me, like, I didn't even know you could have it sipping it while you watch a movie or at dinner. All this culture and constraint around drinking sake had existed. And our goal was to hopefully popularize it, much in the way that wine had been popularized and tequila had been popularized by a lot of different brands. And so that was the goal. And Reina was the key piece. And Reina's got a special quality about her ability to travel between countries.
I have a dual citizenship, US and Japan. I was born in Saipan near Guam because of my father's past business catching tuna around the island and exporting tuna and other products from that region. I was in the same industry, exporting and importing and distributing food in the United States. That was my passion and my life. So it was really lucky to ending up to a team of Paul, because this is the whole new idea of products not just import and export basis, but making a private brand and expand it through marketing company in the United States. So I do this business back and forth, Japan and the United States, especially crafted products from Kyushu area to United States, because I could see both industries and both market and realized that there's so many great opportunities and great products in Kyushu area where people just cultivated over decades. Some companies that last 150 to 200 years, but they've been distributing within 2 to 3 miles around their regions to fulfill the requirements from local people, and they dedicate to development products to satisfy local people. That dedication of this craftsmanship and history behind it really takes the products to the next level where people have never tried it anywhere else. So I noticed that really unpolished diamond in Kyushu area, and really passionate about what if I can bring this products to the right person like Paul, and through Paul, expand it to other people and advertise to other people who are looking for unpolished diamonds. And things happened organically. Paul really took it serious and appreciated it. And we did a Zoom call between the manufacturer, even not sake or the shochu company, but also taco and pickles or soy sauce company or anchovy company from that region. And they were really fascinated to do a face-to-face tasting. He has such a big respect to Japan and these small regions. I think that was the huge difference between working with other advertisement company or sales company. So I hope that Safu Sake will one of the hero products to save each Kyushu region's manufacturers that been struggling over this corona pandemic. We are a team for expanding and promoting Japanese products in general, starting from Safu Sake.
Thanks for listening so far. If you enjoy the show, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Then head to www.thedrinkingbuddyshop.com and pick up some tasty pub snacks, barware, and more. Every purchase he makes helps us support small family-owned businesses in rural Japan and bring you more delicious, unique snacks to pair with your favorite beverages. Special thanks to all of you that have already started enjoying our snacks and sharing them with your buddies. Now, when you introduced the Fuji Shuzo, and obviously you couldn't travel, so how are you able to connect with them? And
it was very hard. There was this giant wall placed over the ocean called coronavirus and pandemic and regulations, and none of it was easing up. And I, in my life, didn't have a 14-day window to quarantine in Japan. And sort of it was the ramp up to the Olympics. So they didn't really want to screw anything up and have people coming abroad to Japan. So it was very, very difficult. And Reina's magical power of having dual passports was a key piece in this, because I definitely didn't want to get investor money until I actually tasted what we would be selling. And the initial connection with Fuji was, hey, why don't you white label some of the sake that I've already brewed? Reina had brought over some of this Junmai Daiginjo of Fuji Shuzo, and we had sort of a taste profile we were going for based on some of the sakes that we had drank from a restaurant in town called Lumi, and then some of the sakes that I've brought down from San Francisco through a company called True Sake. So I was building this sort of matrix of what I liked as far as SMV, acidity, taste, notes and things like that. And when Reina brought this one sample, whether or not it was well taken care of as far as temperature control, the initial flavor was very good, but we didn't like the finishing of it, and it wasn't necessarily the fit for what we were looking for. It would have been super easy if we had had that. And we had a couple investors come over and one of our marketing guys try it, and they all kind of agreed that that necessarily wasn't what we were looking for. And so we went on a mission to find that taste profile, and we found a similar taste profile in this one sake. And this is one of the wonderful things about Reina, is that she had connected with a sake sommelier, importer, exporter, Kaori-san. She was incredible as well. She's one of the sweetest, funniest people who has such a deep knowledge of sake and connections to the breweries. She took the information we gave her of this sake that we liked here, that was distributed in America, went to the brewery where that was being brewed in Hiroshima, and she basically talked to them about what kind of yeast they were using, what kind of mold. And she then took that information and brought it to our brewer, Fuji-san, who then did some similar things, but to a different rice blend. So we use Yamada Nishiki, and the actual creation that he made out of this custom yeast and mold Koji profile was out of this world, but I could only see it through Zoom calls. And obviously, it just looked like some clear liquid that seemed great. Everyone over there is enjoying, and they're telling me it's good, and they're trying to describe it in words. And it kind of comes to this point of like, you really, to sell something or know if you like something, you got to taste it. You got to put the liquid in your mouth. So how to get that bottle there? Reina had gone back to Japan. They had taken the information. They had brewed a new batch. And Reina then said, I've got the bottle. I've got 6 of them. She comes over with this prototype. It looks like something out of a lab. She lands in LA, and I had been at my buddy's restaurant. I said, hey, Reina is coming in. Do you mind if we do a tasting? And she opens up the boxes, and she's got tons of sake. We crack open the bottle, and it was the most stressful reveal. It was like the Grammys or the Oscars, the envelope. You're just on pins and needles. And all of a sudden we took a sip. I was crying, and there was emotion, and this thing came, and they delivered this flavor and this taste. And it was actually even more unusual and cool. And the smoothness of it was probably the most striking. There was this super bright, clean finish. It was super melony, with a hint of rose and some pear in the middle. It just took you on this cool roller coaster ride of coming on not very gently and then developing into this giant melon fruit ball, and then finishing almost as quickly as it came on to almost a non-existent aftertaste. The mouthfeel was a little silky, but then it's gone now. It's this ephemeral feeling, and it makes you just want to get one more glass and pour another. And then next thing you know, you're pouring another, just kind of really enjoying it and trying to taste it. And what we realized is that the bottle was going very quickly. We're just
oh no, you only got 6.
Yeah, I was going to do a whole dinner with the other 4 or 5 bottles, and one of them also had to go to the TTB to get alcohol tested and certified. So
I'm so glad that you're able to get through that and make it to the stage that you're at now. Now, how long has Safu Sake been on the market?
The shipment came in around early August, and we did a friends and family. So that was really successful. Got that into the hands of 50 or 60 good friends and family to taste it and see what their response was and how they liked it. Overwhelmingly, people were amazed by it. One of the comments was that they just seemed to be going through their supply too quickly. And it was dangerously easy to drink. For some people, it was their first real sake experience, and they were just overwhelmed with surprise at how good it was. And then we have been working. We've got a great sales guy, Mike Morlock. Reina's one of our sales experts as well. And we've been just chipping away at building the brand locally in San Diego at restaurants, sushi houses, retail. We've been doing events, tastings, wine festivals, and we've gone through some steps to build the brand. We entered our sake in a contest, a world level event, the New York World Wine and Spirits Contest. And that was amazing. We won double gold. All the judges felt that ours was a gold medal offering, and it's super rare for a sake to get that. So we were super happy that amongst all the sakes that we were double gold in that competition. It was good to have this validation by some world experts at tasting sake. And then we did San Diego Sake Day, put on by Ayaka Ito. She is the founder of Bishak Ramen. And she was telling me, man, this sake day started out with like 50, 60 people, and now it's blossomed to like 700. And we were super thankful to be there and pour, and people seem to have a very positive response to what we were pouring. So Super happy that we got stuff in the country. Super happy we got a big supply. And we're using craft imports up in Long Beach, which has been nothing but supportive in a startup brand, allowing us to warehouse there, working with us on some of our labeling and TTB issues, and then really just being very generous with the back end and how we process and deliver sake to some of our accounts. When you have people doing stuff and it's above and beyond what you expect, it's such a pleasant experience. That's another reason this segment, sake, is so enjoyable to be in.
So if someone wants to get Safu Sake now and they're not in San Diego, how do they go about getting it?
We are now using a platform for small boutique wineries called Vino Shippers. Vino Shippers ships to 44 states. So we're DTC. If you go onto our website at safusake.com, you can join in our club. There's automatic discounts just by joining the club. And we can ship sake to you wherever you are. And then we're hoping to be in more retail places over the next few months.
And are there any other sake or beverage events that you're going to be at?
There are a few festivals that we're looking at. I can't say which ones we're doing right yet, but you can go to the website and we'll put where we're going to be pouring.
Fantastic. Well, I'm very excited for you guys. Do you have any other plans to add another sake to your collection?
Yeah, of course. We're going to expand. Wherever you start is kind of how your brand is perceived. So we wanted to start out with a very high-end premium product representing that our brand is going to deliver this really authentic and super enjoyable experience of a Japanese product. And then sort of go down from there and offer some of the less polished sakes like the Junmai Ginjos and Junmai, maybe Tokobetsu, and maybe play in the Genshu arena there. So more is to come. I think what we ended up having was an amazing branding story too as well with Ignite Beverage Branding out of Portland. They were just the right partner for us to develop the brand, come up with a label that was clean, represented a refreshing, cool visual, and then have lettering that was in English letters that was very bold and recognizable. Yet at the same time, there's Japanese lettering with Safu. We have honor to our brewery with the Fuji Shuzo logo and 150 years of brewing on the side of the boxes and the bottle. So the branding company really did a great job. And that's going to allow us to push out varietals after that, because we wanted to have not just a one-off product, but a label and a whole system with this branding, so that when we brought on varietals, we could easily just change the color, put a logo, give honor to the brewery that we're having do our recipe or our sake, and then push that out. One of the goals I would want out of this company is to have it be a staple on the shelves. Just like you would go and get a certain wine varietal, will always be there. You could buy and then pour and say, okay, I know what I'm buying.
Well, I think you've done a good job. Don't worry.
Thank you. Yeah, and you got to taste it. You got to see what it was all about.
Yeah, no, and that was such an awesome event too. But like you said, on the tasting notes, it doesn't have a strong aftertaste. So it finishes up very clean, and you do want to have some more. So I was very impressed when I came over to your table. But that event was great. I don't know how many people were there, but I think 700-800 people was the max. And I swear there are more people than that.
Yeah, from the size of the line and people coming in. It was quite a party. That thing kicked up a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think it shows you how much there is an interest in sake and in Japanese beverages in general. And so I think you have a great mission. I'm glad that you have Reina on your team trying to bring more of these products out of Oita and out of Kyushu and helping people that are probably just thinking about their own prefecture and their own town, not even a region. They're just thinking their backyard, and giving them a global perspective and finding them a new market. So I think you have a great mission, and I wish you all the success in the world with that. Thanks so much to Paul and Reina. Get a bottle of Safu Sake by checking the link in our episode description. In our next episode, I'll be chatting with Ken Harada about Long Beach's newest Japanese spot, Tori Show. Thanks for listening to The Drinking Buddies Show. Be sure to subscribe and share it with your buddies. Check out our latest artisanal snack offerings at www.thedrinkingbuddieshop.com. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Take care and drink well.